we have partnered closely with Microsoft on delivering the graph analytics workload on Microsoft Fabric.
Microsoft understands that AI-powered solutions are the future.
Our partnership with Microsoft has created a fast and powerful way for roles to take our platform into the enterprise.
Foundry allows us to scale and ship these features much faster in a more connected way.
This is the next big step forward.
Well, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us in this session, and welcome to Microsoft Ignite. Hopefully you enjoyed the keynotes this morning. As we get into it, for those of you wondering why you cannot hear me, it's because you need headphones to hear me, to hear the video, and to not hear the people next door. And so for those of you in the audience versus online, please grab your headphones, get them on, and things will get going. Unlike airlines, you don't get to keep these, so I apologize. But they will keep us engaged. As you go through the presentation, if you see something you like, normally there's a little bit of applause. Here, we don't do that. We do sort of the sign language applause for those who, let's practice it in the room here. Come on, everybody. There you go. There you go. So if you see something you like, or later, Rob's going to do a demo, particularly in the demo stuff. If you see something you like, feel free to raise your hands and jump in. So for today, I wanted to share a little bit of thoughts about software companies and what we are hearing from software companies, how we're helping software companies. Software companies of all different shapes and sizes, from startups to AI natives, ISVs, or independent software vendors. And so we'll have sort of three acts, if you will. I'll cover a little bit about the opportunity. Then, Rob will come up and talk about how we actually can help scale AI apps and agents, do a little bit of a demo, get into the tech a little bit. And then we'll hear from a leading software company just to share out what they're doing. So with that, let's jump in a little bit. There are lots of analogies out there for AI and what's going on in the AI industry. You've probably heard a lot of them, whether it's cloud, mobile, the internet. My favorite is the invention of the light bulb, and you'll hear in a second why, because I think it does a great job of talking about what not only is what's going on in the industry, but how we as Microsoft think about what's going on. So first of all, the light bulb, that was invented. It revolutionized the home and the work. And what was happening in the workforce, it changed things materially. Once the light bulb was invented, then power plants had to be created because there was a demand for light bulbs. So creating power plants were built, electricity lines were put in, and then there was a supply of power and electricity that was then flooded back into the workforce or the factories and the home. And then innovation started. And so things like dishwashers, washing machines, all of the innovation started to happen on this new platform called electricity that came from the invention of the light bulb. In this world of AI, it's relatively similar. And in many ways, we as Microsoft might build a few light bulbs. Microsoft 365 Copilot, the demo you probably saw earlier today, or that you're using already, that's the equivalent of a light bulb. But more importantly, we are building out tons of infrastructure. And you saw Scott today talk about the types of infrastructure we're building out, not only data centers, but chip infrastructures, building infrastructure for everybody to build their own experiences. And that's when partners like software companies come in, because you all go and then build dishwashers and washing machines on top of the infrastructure that we're building out. And so that's really the sort of analogy of how we think about what's going on in the industry, but more importantly, the partnership that Microsoft has with our software companies and how important that partnership is. So what does that mean? It means we together are investing for this new frontier. And we are already seeing lots and lots of momentum with all of you, whether it's Microsoft Azure AI Foundry, or Copilot, we have almost 1 billion users already going. And on developers, you heard this morning, 180 million plus developers on GitHub. And then in our marketplace, the largest catalog of marketplace of AI apps and agents on our marketplace. All of those AI apps and agents come from software companies, come from all of you. And so this is the momentum that's going on in the industry, moving very, very quickly. Like I mentioned, in our marketplace, the largest marketplace of AI apps and agents, 4,000 plus AI apps and agents already in the new Microsoft marketplace. We're excited about that. Of course, that's in partnership with the work that we do together. One of those examples is Replit. And so they're on a real mission. And I thought I'd just play a little bit of a video so that you can see what Replit are doing on the Microsoft platform.
Every enterprise organization in the world is bottlenecked by software. Our mission is to create 1 billion new developers. Replit is a leading full-stack natural language AI platform that can build, test, and deploy software. It can empower everyone to be able to make software very, very quickly. 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗲, as a global IT and systems integrator company,
we are an AI-first service provider. 𝗬𝗬𝗀 and Replit is a very potent combination for enterprise clients. We realized that we could actually develop applications extremely fast and with great flexibility that are deployable and used by our clients without writing a line of code.
Microsoft was a natural choice for partner. Microsoft for Startups allows you to get on the cloud very easily, gives you access to expertise to architect and design your systems, to be scalable. It's a huge accelerator. Enterprises want to be able to run on a platform they trust and it's secure. And Azure is the top in the world. Replit Agent 3 can go to Azure, provision these services, do the entire software development lifecycle.
With the enterprise-grade integrations, any application that is built is good to go from a governance, security, and compliance side.
The Microsoft Marketplace offers amazing distribution. Our customers want to buy Replit there.
It's the ease of consuming licenses at scale and speed, just a few clicks away.
Marketplace can introduce us to a lot of customers we otherwise wouldn't have access to. So it fundamentally accelerated our go-to-market and our growth within the enterprise. Ideas come from everywhere in the enterprise. The potential for unlocking 1 billion people to be able to create software, that's just an incredibly inspiring mission for us.
Okay, so you heard from Replit. I wanted to share a little bit of what we're hearing from many of these software companies, as I mentioned, whether they're startups, AI natives, independent software vendors, or ISVs. These are the 3 things we typically hear on what's valuable for them from Microsoft. So I wanted to unpack this, and as I go through these 3 areas, I'll talk about a few of the announcements that you either heard this morning or that have been made outside of the keynote that give you a sense of how we continue to move this forward. So the first in unlocking growth with AI. For us, that's about helping software companies leverage Microsoft's AI stack, the one you heard about this morning, the one that many of our large-scale partners are using today. And you heard 11,000 already models available to use, lots of different choice, how to manage those models, how to work with them. And you heard Anthropic this morning, one of the largest partners that we added to finish the portfolio of models available. Then the Foundry agent service, really now that you start building agents and how you manage those agents and how you have those agents perform and monitoring them, great opportunity there. And then responsibility, real important to have responsible AI. And so the Azure AI platform helps you do that. And so this is really a huge platform that unlocks capability for software companies to innovate, to differentiate themselves with their own customer experiences that they implement in the market. And so at Ignite, besides the announcement this morning of Anthropic, we also announced Cohere. Cohere is a first-party large language model in Microsoft Foundry. We had it on as a third-party model or model as a service, but now it's a first-party model and has just the same access to all the Foundry services as the likes of OpenAI and the OpenAI service. Then the Unified Tools Catalog on Foundry, also another way to unify the rich AI agentic platform for enterprises, so everything in one place, one control plane in order to manage those things. And then a managed instant Azure app service, allowing you to really take things like a web service running not in the cloud and very simply migrate that to the cloud in a simple, easy way to modernize it and bring it into the AI world. So next up in the second pillar, how do we help you accelerate development? Of course, the lead dog here is GitHub and GitHub Copilot, and really how we provide capability so that developers in the flow of their work can outsource menial tasks to GitHub and GitHub Copilot, and then focus on the more meaningful activities in their daily work. Then from a database perspective, this is really important. You heard this morning Scott talk about Cosmos DB as the underlying infrastructure database for OpenAI and ChatGPT. This is large, massive scale, volume transactions. You need that when you're a software company. And then PostgreSQL, similar capabilities, slightly different skills for different scenarios for software companies. And then, of course, support for open source tools. We love open source. We build open source at the core. And so that's one of the biggest feedback from software companies in making sure that we continue our roadmap in delivering on that open source promise. So in terms of announcements at Microsoft Ignite in this category, first is the integration of Microsoft Defender into GitHub Advanced Security, so that within the flow of the work, those two capabilities become connected, so a developer can have access to everything in Microsoft Defender and as they develop inside their app lifecycle. We announced private preview of Horizon DB. Scott mentioned this morning. It's really hard to undersell this in terms of how fast this new database capacity is and how much capacity it can address at the same time. And so really important for software companies as you scale up to large impact. And then on the hardware side, Azure Boost really enhances the storage throughput in terms of what you might be doing on a daily basis inside your applications. And then finally, the third pillar about scaling with confidence. This is about what programs, what platforms and products can we provide to software companies that help you sell and grow with us. So first up is the new Microsoft Marketplace that we launched on September 25th, where we integrated the historical AppSource Marketplace and the Azure Marketplace into a reimagined single Microsoft Marketplace. So customers can come to one place and get an agent running in Copilot, an application running on Azure, a service that integrates with Microsoft Security Stack, all in one place, acquire, discover, try, buy, and deploy, all in one place. What that means for software companies is that your customers are now going to the central place to discover all of these services. So we're really excited about that and got great feedback in the short period of time. And then Copilot, that's an endpoint. You might say, oh, I saw a great demo this morning. Why is it a place for me to sell better? Well, if I build a service, an application, an add-in, an agent that runs in Copilot or in Teams, that's an endpoint for you to get distribution. And so as you build out your own experiences, whether it's a full app that's running, that has an agent in Copilot, or just an agent that works in an isolated way, this is an amazing set of desktops, users that have access, would now have access to your agent. And then finally, a set of programs. You saw in the video from Replit, the Microsoft for Startups program, ISV Success is another program, all part of our Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program. Love our acronyms, so I hope you all memorize the MAICPP on the slide. But yes, those are all the programs. And so we made some announcements today. The first is we have worldwide general availability of the Microsoft Marketplace. In September, we only announced the US. So very excited about that. And we also announced the support of resale-enabled offers, the ability for software companies to authorize a reseller in a particular geography to sell on their behalf on the marketplace. So now that you can sign a contract with a reseller, get them to sell, and then they get access to the marketplace capabilities. Agent 365, you heard it this morning, a really smart way to empower your agents, track your agents, and give that access to the same identity, security, and compliance infrastructure that is available to your organization. And then finally, we're evolving our rewards on ISV Success for our partners to help you accelerate and get better access to our co-sell capabilities. Okay, so with that, I think this is a good time to stop listening to me and to hear from Rob and have a look at his demo. So Rob.
Pleasure, man.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Hey, I'm Rob Ferguson. I'm the head of AI and CTO for the Microsoft Startups team. And I've got an awesome job. I get to work with the world's best startups and help them kind of build and scale their businesses on Azure. But for the many, many years that I worked as a CTO, I would always joke that CTO stood for like chief therapist. You always ran into all these issues where it would be like all the problems that people had around building software and how hard it was to build a team and make sure that everybody really understood. And I think the number one question that I get from people who are looking to build with us is, how do I keep up with all of these changes? And I sort of say that we've been in this season where it kind of feels like the season of burnout, where there's always a new AI model, there's always a new framework, there's always something else, and it can be really overwhelming. I want to tell you, you're not alone. I work with startups who are building agents in production, and even they are overwhelmed. So it can be really hard to build an agent. In fact, building production scale agents involves being able to orchestrate complex agents across the world, being able to get into specificities like responsible AI, being able to understand sort of the gap between what was working really well in my terminal but doesn't seem to work when I scale it to a few million users. And these closed systems, they're very hard to develop for. There's always these enterprise requirements that come in and create a bunch of friction. What we need now is not another toy framework. We need opinionated, stable patterns that help teams move fast, stay secure, testable, observable, basically something that looks and feels like a standard so that you can invest in becoming an expert and move from the season of burnout into this season of expertise that I think we're just now coming into now. So, of course, Microsoft has every way you could imagine to build agents, everything from low-code ways all the way to very, very specific that I find startups really love to build with, because there's something really powerful about building an agent with Source. You can have all these specificities where you can help understand exactly how your agents are being used and how it's deployed. And if you need something on a lighter scale, then you're able to do that kind of all in the same framework and same place. What we're building is a full spectrum from low-code experiences to agents as code without feeling like a toy at either end. In practice, 2 of our open source projects kept showing up with serious builders, Semantic Kernel and Autogen. Now, each of these had real strengths, but they also added to this fragmentation story. So we asked, what if we converge both of these into a single cohesive framework as a way to build agents? And so that's what the Microsoft Agent Framework is. It brings together the ideas of Semantic Kernel and Autogen into one extensible framework for production agents. Now, the aim is to move you out of this burnout into the stable phase so that you can get expertise, right? Well, you need to know that you have coverage for all the different things that you're building for. And that's where Microsoft Foundry sits above that. It's everything you need end-to-end to build and run agents, from how you build them to how you ground them in your data, which models you use, where you deploy, what tools they call, and how you observe and secure the whole thing in production. Part of the feeling like an expert is to feel like you don't need a really complicated environment with a lot of different permissions and everything set up. So we made it so it's local first and cloud agnostic. You can use the same code on Azure as you would on any other platform. And the prototype and debug agents locally gives you that instant feedback that makes you feel a lot more confident as a developer. On the tools side, we're completely open. We work with A2A, MCP, OpenAI. We plug into all the framework you might already use, like LangChain or CrewAI, so that you can invest in whatever stack you're already invested in and build agents that can reach it. We have incredibly managed services on Azure. And honestly, it's my belief that Azure is the best place to run open source software. You have global availability. You're able to run on absolutely incredible machines that get you closer to your customers. On top of that, with Azure Logic, you can connect over 1,400 different connectors into all the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem, connecting SaaS apps, line of business system, internal APIs with almost no glue code. It's a really fast way to get going. And for really advanced teams, you can go ahead and try to bring on MCP. I like to think of MCP as the hands in your system and the agent framework as your brain, so that the hands can touch your real system's data and your agent framework is the brain. But let me show you kind of what that looks like. So I had a kind of fun meta demo here, because basically I pair programmed with an AI to come and show you agents, MCP, and local dev all in one place. So the #1 agent in the world is deep research, and then of course it's coding agents, but a lot of people want to build the next level, which is back-of-house apps, which is often having document understanding and document intelligence. So I've got a set of screenshots here, and just like everybody else, my screenshots are a total mess. I've got some fake Excel, a fake document, some code, Jira, we've got a dog in a hot dog costume. We've got a dog in a banana costume. It's looking a lot like my screenshots now. So how do we take this from a whole set of messy screenshots into something that we actually use? Well, what I did is I went and I used GitHub Spec Kit. And so instead of building this in code, I told it how I want to build a project and what are the user stories that I want to build. So at the top here, I have the core principles of my application. I want it to be production ready. I want it to be honest and capable. I want privacy options. I want performance transparency. I want to build this thing in Python. I want good test coverage. I want a nice user experience. So in fact, I'd rather use local OCR, so it's much faster. And then if the local OCR fails on my screenshot, then I'm going to send it to GPT-4 to be on vision. I'm going to understand it from a security and privacy standpoint, and I'm really going to optimize for performance and extensibility. And then I can come over here, and I can start describing the actual nature of the specification. It's going to include things like use the Microsoft Agent Framework. I want to use all my local AI Foundry models, as well as GPT-4, and I want to connect the whole thing to my operating system using MCP. And what I like about this demo idea is not only can you kind of see the theme of this, but if you wanted to go build this code, you could take these and rebuild it yourself. So unlike sort of this one-shot prompt approach that you often see in these demos, this is something that you could go in and you could change yourself without fully understanding every detail of the framework and be able to build very similar code. So let's give it a shot. All right. We're going to just go ahead and we're going to run this particular agent in my terminal. And the first thing that we're going to notice is that it says, OK, I'm a screenshot organizer assistant. I'm going to be running remotely with GPT-4. And I can do things like analyze your screenshots or organize a given folder. Just tell me what folder you want and what categories you want to support. Oh, and of course, demo effect. I think it's just my Wi-Fi, though. So we're going to try one more time. Would never be a good demo unless you had some demo effect inside. All right, we'll try one more time. And here we are. We're connected to the Wi-Fi. We'll just see if this is an actual agent that's running. How about tell me 10? OK, 10, except for let's get back to organizing your screenshot. I don't want to do that. What model are you? It says, hey, I'm built with the Microsoft Agent Framework. I'm connected to use your local OCR. This sounds great. Let's go ahead and specify some messy screenshots for you to go and clean up for me. So now it's going to use local OCR on my machine with MCP. It sounds 6 screenshots. Why don't you just go ahead and categorize them? And I'm able to use any sort of natural language that I want to at this point. If I wanted to, I could go and I could test this with a local agent, or I can use this with a more powerful remote agent, either way, and be able to go through and be able to talk with my operating system in a more natural way. So maybe I don't want just one set of categories as one they have. I can change it up depending on what it runs and depending on how long it takes for me to send these JPEGs over Wi-Fi. So here we are. We've got 6 screenshots. It seems like it got it. A dog dressed in a banana costume meant for humor. Looks good. How about instead of calling it humor, we call all dog pictures good boys? All right, looks pretty good. And anything sensitive should be labeled so. All right, go ahead and organize them. So now if I go back and I can watch, we've already built my folders that make the most sense. And if I go through and as it puts them into the names that make the most sense along with things that work directly inside. So I've gone from that set into ones that actually make sense for my program. And so I hope you'll try GitHub Spec Kit and to try to make your own things. I also hope that you'll try some local first AI development and know that Azure is an amazing place for open source. You can deploy it anywhere, and it's going to work incredibly well. So that's it for my demo. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Rob. That was awesome. Small note to self-enabling Wi-Fi will always help. But thank you, that was great. So next up, I wanted to bring John up on stage and have him share a little bit of thoughts from a leading software company. So everybody, please welcome John to the stage. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Cyril.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah, go ahead. How are you doing? How's Ignite?
It's exciting. It's there's a lot of energy. It's really good.
Yeah, it's great.
Really good.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and Sight Machine, and what's your mission?
Our mission is to bring all of the AI and sort of high technology capabilities that most industries in the world are using and starting to use more and more to factories, to industry. The domain that we serve is manufacturing, which is 16% of the world's GDP.
Yep.
And for 30 years, you know, they have been operating in a very different technology environment, and now there's a really strong push to bring AI into that world. So we help them do that.
That's great, and I love spending time with you and many others in industry because you're right at the I want to say coalface, but at the factory floor in your case.
That's right.
When was the moment that you realized AI was going to change the industry that you work in?
I was talking with our Chief AI Officer, Kurt, about it today, and we both remembered this moment in 2018. We were working in this big glass plant that makes what's called flat glass. So they roll out just glass all day long. And we started to put some AI techniques to work on their data to predict when they were going to make defects 3 days before the defects happened. Mm-hmm. And the benefit of that is you make higher quality glass and you use about 10% less energy. And there were some people in the factory who were understandably very skeptical of giving the keys over to the computer. So we scored how the AI did, and it did really well. It had 80% predictive power, and that was from one little sort of area. Extended it beyond that, and we all kind of realized this is really happening. It was very exciting. People have been talking about AI for many, many years.
Yeah.
There's been a real step change in the last couple of years.
2 or 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
When do you see your customers moving from experimentation to actual large-scale implementation with outcomes? When did that happen?
Last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And the industrial companies are very rigorous about how they adopt technology, whether it's AI or anything else. We have a client that makes metal for aircraft, and the companies that make airplanes test their metal for 8 years, make sure it doesn't fail. Same with AI, but they're moving much faster. What they want to see is that it makes a difference in the day-to-day work and outcomes of people in the plants, and as soon as they see that, it's on. And there's a lot of sort of pregame you got to do. This is a big, big change, but everything in manufacturing is quantifiable, and as soon as you show results, you get a lot of support.
That's awesome. So let's pull the covers back a little bit. What outcomes actually are your customers benefiting from or receiving today?
They're making things with higher quality. So industries like automotive or life sciences, you have to make this stuff really well.
Yeah.
They're using less energy. They are making more stuff more profitably. And now firms that make things are starting to join insight from the factories to their supply chains, to their demand and sales, logistics. All of this stuff is getting connected very quickly.
That's great. So yesterday we were chatting a little bit about the platforms that you're leveraging, and this morning we heard a lot about Foundry IQ and Fabric IQ and Work IQ. Maybe unpack a little bit on what you're doing with your tech on top of the Microsoft platform.
We're very excited to talk about this. We've been working with Microsoft for over a decade. And if you think about what it takes to bring AI into a factory, we saw some footage earlier of a steel plant, I think.
That got you excited.
Oh, I loved it. Felt very familiar and exciting. And if you think about it for a minute, a plant is a physical facility. To turn AI on, we got to hook it up to the cloud. We got to get all this data streaming, labeled, got to make sense of it, then put a bunch of high-powered math on top of it and make it presentable so somebody can understand the signal in real time. So today we announced with Microsoft the end-to-end industrial AI stack, where literally the whole thing is in a kit. You buy one offering on Marketplace, and from connecting to getting your cloud environment spun up to getting AI that people can use, it's a matter of weeks.
Okay.
And that is an end-to-end integrated offering that's available on Marketplace.
Great. So you mentioned Marketplace, so did I. Tell me more about that. What part of your sort of strategy or how you sell is it today?
It's very, we're very deeply involved with working with Marketplace for a couple of reasons. Again, always start from the point of view of the industrial client. They want a solution, and they want the pieces put together in a way that is easy to bring on and use. So Marketplace puts us in an ecosystem with Microsoft and then a bunch of great manufacturing partners, and we can assemble these pieces very easily from a solution point of view. Then from a transacting point of view, literally, client pushes a button, it's done. It's great for the partner. So we started doing the majority of our work on Microsoft 3 or 4 years ago on Marketplace. And we're fans. It's really working.
I mean, you mentioned on the customer side, they obviously make commitments to Microsoft for their Azure business. And then transactions on the Marketplace get to retire that commitment, which is great for you. You get to streamline your procurement process with them. So, yeah, it's great. So, last thought, any advice for fellow software companies or startups? And you've been through all of the phases. Independent software vendor, now you're an AI native pushing the ball forward on AI. Any advice you'd have for fellow software companies?
We do. We had the privilege to partner with several good engineering teams at Microsoft over the last couple of years in developing our first group of agents. And these are real sort of multi-agent offerings where we're constantly monitoring everything going on in a factory, making recommendations, balancing out 5 or 6 different analytical streams at once. And when we started, we had 2 people working with some good engineers from Microsoft. There wasn't as much documentation, there wasn't as much kit and sort of infrastructure as there is now. They gave us advice on design choices. They helped us think about multi-agent architecture. They helped us figure out how to work with the kernel. And so extrapolating from that, what I think has happened is, as I look at some of the announcements today, you all are putting into product some of the expertise you so generously shared with us. So my first piece of advice is, you don't need an army to do this. Get a couple good AI developers who are comfortable thinking about these kind of opportunities. Use the platform. Second thing is, good data makes good AI. Think about getting your data in shape and doing the spade work on the data. The AI goes really fast if you do that. And then the third thing is, don't be afraid. Get out there, try it. Our first couple of experiences with this really got us fired up. And so we've gone deep into it.
That's great. So, well, listen, the analogy I used earlier of building power stations and then partners like yourself building washing machines. Thanks so much for building amazing washing machines and dishwashers, and look forward to great partnership in the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cyril.
Yeah, thanks, John. Round of applause for John. Thank you. Okay, so starting to wind things up a little bit. So just some thoughts for you as we wind down. Let you take screenshots of this. or use the screen to get to the actual URLs, starting with the software company's website. You'll see basically the context that we provided here for you to take a look at. ISV Success, in addition to Microsoft for Startups, great place to go and get help, support, building, but also getting onto Marketplace. And then the Microsoft Marketplace. You heard from John, you probably heard from many others. Get onto the Marketplace, get into the community, transact. And as John says, there's lots of opportunities to do partner-to-partner work, where you're bringing together your solution with someone else's solution, and maybe engage a reseller to sell it on your behalf. So lots of opportunities to engage the hundreds of thousands of Microsoft resellers out there in the market. So I've got one last video to play. Thank you for your time today. Check out the video on Marketplace and enjoy the rest of Ignite.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.